Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this press briefing. I am sure that this is not what we were expecting. We were hoping to have some exciting and very informative hearing today and tomorrow. Unfortunately, that is not to be. The witness, as you know, who was subpoenaed to appear before the commission today is Mr. Yankuba Toure, a member of the AFPRC. You have seen how he has conducted himself before the commission. First, he came in and completely refused to be sworn in and stormed out of the commission in blatant disregard of the fact that this is a very important institution of our country. Its importance can't be overemphasized, especially as we search for ways and means to better strengthen democracy and the rule of law in this country. This is a time wherein we expect proper conduct and decorum of all those people in our society, especially those who have occupied senior positions in this country. Mr. Trrc was given a second opportunity at my encouragement of the commissioners. I thought that this was just the best thing to do in the interest of pursuing the objectives of the TRRC, which is to ensure that us Gambians would have a conversation amongst ourselves, a soul-searching conversation in which we look into the ills of the past with a view to identifying the problems, ensure healing, give victims a platform to talk about their own victimization and therefore get some form of healing, but also for us to reconcile as a people and turn a new page by taking or implementing measures that would help prevent the violations or atrocities of the past from happening again. That is the whole objective of this TRRC. It is not a witch hunt. The Commission has given Mr. Trrc ample opportunities to cooperate with the Commission. It is disappointing that he has behaved in this manner. It is well and good for people to seek to have their rights recognized and respected. Mr. Trrc could have done so, as he's claiming he's doing. But this is not the forum, really, to come and invoke certain rights. I mean, it should have been done before the High Court. But that said and done, Mr. Trrc does not have the right to refuse to answer questions before the TRRC, especially questions that do not incriminate him of any crimes, especially questions that have nothing to do with the immunity provision that he claims. What he's been asked, the last question he was asked, was about problems in the army before 1994. His immunity, if it exists at all, deals with ask of the AFPRC. So he cannot refuse to answer those questions. But the Commission encourages civilized behavior. There are things that the Commission could not do. But certainly what has happened here is a contempt in the face of the Commission, and we believe that several offenses have been committed. As directed by the Commission, a referral would be prepared and submitted to the Attorney General's chambers with a view to prosecuting Mr. Yankuba Toure. Obviously, the rules are very clear. Our responsibility ends at submitting a referral. It is within the absolute discretion of the Attorney General to carry out a prosecution. And that discretion cannot be fettered by the Truth Commission. So we expect that the Attorney General would make his decision purely based on legal issues, and that his discretion would be exercised the way he sees fit. The Commission would not seek to influence that at all, because there is a point where our authorities stops. But that said, we are certain and confident that he would make the right decision. Of course, the objectives of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission would always be in the forefront of things. And we are certain that the Attorney General, being the architect of our transitional justice arrangements, would make the best decision under the circumstances, a decision that would encourage reconciliation, a decision that would foster the rule of law or strengthen the rule of law, and a decision that would ensure greater harmony and and greater unity amongst us as a people. So we hope that the papers would reach the Ministry of Justice as soon as possible. Unfortunately, the current situation means that we won't have a hearing tomorrow, and the chairman has allowed me to announce that this session stands adjourned as of the end of today's proceedings, and we will resume on the 8th of July, God willing. This is a difficult moment. This is the first time in which the authority of the Commission has been so blatantly challenged. This is the first time when a person appeared before the Commission and treated the Commission with so much disregard for norms of civilized behavior. But we understand that this has evoked a lot of negative sentiments among members of the public. We want to encourage members of the general public to remain calm and to respect Mr. Trrc's rights. Every Gambian has rights, and their rights must be respected. Do not take the law in your own hands, no matter how disappointed or angry you may be. Please make sure that you do not attack Mr. Trrc, do not insult him, do not do anything negative against him. The law would take its own course. Please do not take the law in your own hands. The legal process would unfold as deemed necessary by the Attorney General. That's his prerogative. So let us leave it at that. We have to have the utmost confidence in our public officials. That is all we have to say, and we are happy to answer a few questions that you may have. Yes, the lady in yellow, please, yellow and white. Please announce the press, the house that you represent. Thank you.
All right. So, good afternoon or morning? Okay, good afternoon. So my name is Fatu Likamloshi, and I'm from the Gambia Radio and Television Services. And my question is actually, what immunity is Mr. Trrc trying to talk about? What immunity, and if any immunity, why would he want to, why did he stood up on the commission? Because if he has any form of immunity, that should not have warranted him to just get out of the commission and not want to explain anything that at the end of the day will not have any form of repercussion. So that point I want to understand.
I think that this is a question that is better directed at Mr. Trrc, because it is him who is trying to invoke an immunity. Of course, we know that in the Constitution there is a schedule arising out of the 2001 amendment, which grants immunity to members of the AFPRC for the acts that were committed during a particular time frame. So it's like the AFPRC members were trying to insulate themselves from prosecution. There are a lot of legal issues that arise out of this. I do not want to make this press briefing the subject of a lecture or a discussion on the validity of the purported immunity that Mr. Trrc claims. But obviously, by just a cursory look at it, there are a lot of problems. In the first instance, the law is basically discriminatory. You give immunity to Yaya Jammeh, but you don't give immunity to Musa Jammeh, who went to kill on behalf of Yaya Jammeh. The law is obviously discriminatory. There are other problems in the law. My understanding of developments in modern law suggests to me that this immunity can be tossed out of court. simply because it is not in line with the norms of customary international law. The AFPRC, some of the crimes they've been involved in are clearly, in my mind, crimes against humanity. There is no immunity for crimes against humanity. But this is a matter for the High Court to deal with, or rather the Supreme Court to deal with, should Mr. Trrc decide to go to the Supreme Court or to the High Court to challenge the authority of the Commission of Inquiry. So we leave this issue for some future date. I want to believe that Mr. Trrc has had competent legal advice when he made these decisions. Throughout our interactions with him, we have always ensured that we showed him the greatest respect that one could give to anybody. We treat a president and a janitor exactly with the same level of respect before this commission. We see everybody as human beings, and therefore we accord them with the same level of dignity and respect without discrimination. He's been given the opportunity throughout this process to consult with his lawyers. He's been provided with the law, as he's demonstrated before the commission that he read all the laws, all the relevant laws. So we have discharged our responsibility to him. Perhaps that is what emboldened him or informed his decision to challenge the authority of the commission. But like I said at the beginning, I don't want to make this press briefing about the legality or otherwise of the immunity provision that Mr. Trrc claims. He would be in a better position to explain his legal strategy and the strength of his case. So we leave it at that. Any question? Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I am Yankuba Diallo for a newspaper. I will start from the last point of a press conference before the questions. We have had some of the public audience who came here, and they were saying they came purposely to kill Yankuba Trrc. We had it outside. So what?
To what?
To kill him. Some said Yankuba Trrc mo tax ma ñew fi dama ko ñew rey ay yoy. So that is very important. One. And two, we would like to know how many times have you subpoenaed Yankuba Trrc? We don't want to go with vague numbers. You said multiple times, according to it. So we would like to know how many times have you written and what were his responses. And two, aside of Yankuba Trrc, do you have other witnesses who are treating the commission the same way? Yes.
I will start with the last question. It's the easier one. There is no other witness who is treating the commission in the manner in which Mr. Trrc just did. And be rest assured that we are in contact with those witnesses who anybody would think bear the greatest responsibility for the violations that occurred between 1994 and 1997 at least. So it's only Mr. Trrc who is behaving in this manner. We have seen, of course, Mr. Sanasabali appearing before the commission. He cooperated with the commission quite well. And we've all seen how he conducted himself when he appeared before the commission. And also we have seen the response of Gambians towards Mr. Sabali. There is no doubt that he committed offenses. Mr. Sabali is the first one to raise his hands and say, yes, I have committed very serious crimes against the Gambian people. But notwithstanding that, at least Gambians respect him for coming forward to acknowledge his own crimes. And there is a value in speaking the truth. And that is why Mr. Sabali is being treated differently by the Gambian public. For us as the lawyers sitting here, we give people what they deserve. Mr. Sabali committed crimes. He was treated as somebody who committed crimes. He expressed remorse. He was treated as somebody who expressed remorse. Whether some accepted the remorse or not, at least he is treated as somebody who stated that he was remorseful. He asked for forgiveness. He is treated as somebody who's asked for forgiveness. And regardless of how one feels about the totality of his testimony. We have to salute him for the simple fact that he was brave enough to come before the Gambian people and say, I committed crimes against you, my people. I ask for forgiveness. That is quite significant. We expected, the whole essence of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission is for people to come and present themselves in that manner. Come and speak the truth about what has happened. Show remorse for what they have done and ask for forgiveness. And that way, we all reconcile as a people and we move forward. So that is what we expected. So far, the experience has been that most of the people, I think everybody we've been in contact with, cooperated. They may not admit all the allegations made against them, but they all cooperated. Mr. Trrc is the sole exception. The second question is how many subpoenas we had given him. The failure to respond to those subpoenas were not of Mr. Trrc's making. And let me make that clear. He did not fail to respond to any of our subpoenas before today. We had given him two previous subpoenas. Those were postponed. Appearance was postponed by the Trrc. We requested the postponement, or we ordered the postponement. So Mr. Trrc is not at fault for not appearing on the dates of those previous subpoenae. Right? The only subpoena that was outstanding is this one of today. Yes, he's been served on 3 separate occasions, but the previous 2 were postponed simply because it was not possible for him to testify on the appointed dates. That's the reason. The first question, I can't really recall the first question. Could you state it again?
Members of the public.
Yes, I think I have made it abundantly clear that it is absolutely wrong to threaten anybody, let alone to threaten the person with death. It does not matter who that person is or what the person has done. People have to learn to respect the law, and the Commission would not be tired encouraging Gambians to respect the law. We are not encouraging anybody. In fact, we will condemn anybody who wants to take the law in his or her own hands by trying to do anything to Mr. Trrc. The Commission's order is very clear. It was directed at the police and solely at the police. No member of the public would have any right under the circumstances to do anything to Mr. Trrc. So I encourage everybody to desist from doing anything that would infringe upon the rights of Mr. Trrc. He has certain fundamental rights that must be respected no matter what. And this must extend to Mr. Trrc and his family. We have to understand that the law must be allowed to take its own course. And I hope that the public would take heed to what I have just said. This is absolutely important. We have to treat each other properly and according to the law. There was a lady at the back. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Penda. I'm a freelance journalist. Sorry.
Speak up, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Penda. I'm a freelance journalist. I want to know, despite everything that happened here today, and Mr. Trrc happens to come back to the Commission to ask for another opportunity, will he be granted or not? Thank you.
The Commission is about healing, is about reconciliation, is about embracing one another as a people. The objectives that we have are more important than me. They are more important than the chairman. They are more important than all of us put together. This is about who we are as a people. This is a soul-searching mission. This is about Gambia looking into its horrible past with a view to correcting that for the future. If Mr. Trrc can come and contribute to that process, we will roll out the red carpet to him. And we won't be tired doing that, because that's the way it has to be. The objective is so important for us as a people. And therefore, if he wants to come back and testify, we would embrace him wholeheartedly. That has nothing to do with the crimes that he already committed. That is a matter for him, the Attorney General, and the state. It's not a matter for the Commission. I hope that has answered your question. Yes, the gentleman at the back.
Sorry, are you a journalist, please? Are you a journalist?
Just allow him. Just allow him. Doesn't matter. Allow him.
Okay. My name is Njajan Gorenjai, and my question to the Commission today is more like getting some clarification on the jurisdiction of this Commission. And I'm going to quote Dr. Trrc's final remarks the last time he was here. So I quote, now we have a commission which not really empowered to do anything but find out. I don't think the country can afford to do that. For a commission of this magnitude, in terms of negative implication of the country, there ought to be something that should be manifestly high profile to be able to remedy fundamental things which are, because the guys who benefit from this are still running the show, and this is the tragedy. And this is the tragedy of it. So I hope that it will be possible for the Commission to empower itself. I also quote Mr. Fall's response to Dr. Trrc's skepticism in the power or jurisdiction of this Commission. I quote, and to allay your fears that the Commission will do what is expected of it, the recommendation would come, and we considering when is the best time to make that recommendation, but they would surely come. Also reiterate, there are certain expectations that are beyond the remit of this Commission and fall squarely on the lap of the politician. When the recommendation comes, I hope the Gambian public would hold their public officials accountable to how to deal with the recommendation that this Commission or other commission would submit to them. That was a very brilliant answer, but me, as a layman, I'm not really satisfied with it. So what I'm trying to say, with Dr. Trrc's comment, remark, or concern about the power of the jurisdiction of this commission, is there any time that had hit you guys in touch with you realize how your hands are tied, or legally, is there any step that you're going to be planned to take to, eliminate the doubt that Dr. Trrc and some other citizens might have about the power to get to the closure of this commission?
Thank you for that question. It is not directly germane to the issue at hand at the moment, even though one can find some resonance. I will reiterate the answer that I gave to Dr. Trrc. We should recognize that there is so much that the Commission can do. But within what is within what is our power to do, I think the act that we have is sufficiently strong to assist the Commission to do its work. But about implementation of the recommendations, you understand that that is a political issue and not a matter for the Commission. That is why in my answer, I said that I hope the Gambian people will hold their public officials accountable for their actions. And what I mean is, it is for us to decide whether we want our government to implement the recommendations or not. If the government failed to implement the recommendation, we as a people, we have certain actions that we can take. I don't think it's even appropriate for me to tell you exactly what those actions can be. But power lies with the people and not with any particular individual. So if our public officials fail to live up to our expectations, we know what to do as a people. It's a civic responsibility. I expect that you, sir, being a very concerned citizen, would live up to your civic obligations like all other Gambians, should live up to their civic obligations and ensure that the government we have would work for us as a people. And I say no more about that. I think it is absolutely clear. Thank you. The gentleman at the back there, thank you.
Thank you very much, Council Fall. This is Keba Ansomane from Chronicle News Agency. First, I would like to know what lessons has the Council learned today after the defiant testimony of former junta leader Yankuba Toure, and also what may be the possible legal charges that may be levied against him. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, mister, but I'm not surprised, and I haven't learned any new lesson. Any practitioner in the International Criminal Court would know that these things happen all the time. People would come and challenge jurisdiction, or people would come and act in a very contemptuous manner. But oftentimes, these are people who are already in detention. So if you detain them, they are already in detention, so it wouldn't make much sense. For Mr. Toure, fortunately, he is at liberty. He is in liberty, I meant to say. So it may have certain consequences. Like we said earlier, we think that his behavior was contemptuous of the proceedings of this commission. That is an offense under the laws of the Gambia. Multiple offenses may have been committed, depending on how one looks at it. But the most obvious is being sworn in and refusing to answer questions under the Criminal Procedure Code, but also under the Act of the TRRC, section, I think it's section 15, which talks about refusal to answer questions of the TRRC. But also, in fact, can one say that Mr. Toure has effectively appeared pursuant to the subpoena? He has obviously refused to testify. He said he is refusing to testify. But these are all matters to be dealt with, not by us, but by a court of law. So we leave it to the Attorney General in his abundant wisdom to look at things and decide what he wants to do with it. That is not a matter for the Commission to decide. Like I say, we do not intend to say or do anything that would appear as if we are trying to encumber or fetter the discretion of the Attorney General to bring criminal proceedings. Thank you. Yes.
My name is Janke Drame. I'm interested in sitting today. But I think his behavior today shouldn't be a surprise to the Commission, because according to him, he said he is willing to appear at the TRRC, but he is not willing to testify. So I don't know what's your take about that.
I have no take on that.
Sorry, I think this week, let's have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fall. I am Sajo Sambo from iAfrica TV. Of course, Yankuba's appearance or attitude has triggered fear or angered the citizens of this nation, who obviously dispatched at the outskirts of the TRC premises, having at least students to at least retaliate or show their anger to Sana Sabal with words so fearing that we're gonna kill him. Is it today that you know the law? We should have handcuffed you, or they should have hung you to death. If we handle you, we will kill you. This is also triggering fear within the people here. And as a commission, what would you recommend to be done or adjusted towards security of the perpetrators or the victims or the witnesses here, or the welfare of the media personnel who are always present here to cover this TRC? Thank you.
I think we have partly dealt with this issue. The TRRC premises is well secured. There is a committed representation of the police, and I think I have not seen exactly what was happening out there, but I believe that they have taken charge of the situation and have managed to deal with it professionally. At least I haven't heard anybody saying that he or she was assaulted or that Mr. Toure was assaulted. It appears to me that everything went well. What we would encourage is proper decorum from everybody concerned. Members of the public should know their limits. They do not have a right to attack anybody. Also, members of the press have to respect the people that they come across with. And we also have to respect you and respect members of the public here. So if we all respect one another, I think everything would go very smoothly, as has happened indeed. That is not to say people have a right to want to vindicate their rights. So perhaps maybe that's the way to say it. We have said that it is wrong to want to attack Mr. Toure or any member of his family for that matter. So we encourage people to desist from any such behavior, and we hope that that advice would be heeded. It would be a criminal offense to attack Mr. Toure, so be warned. Thank you. Last question, please. This gentleman.
Thank you very much. My name's Mafuji Sise. I work for the Standard newspaper. We are living witness to previously the trial of Yakuba Toure and Fatou Jahumba Cisse at the High Court, and before the High Court it was at the Kanepe Magistrate Court, then to the High Court, and what we learned is nothing comes out of it. Suppose today's Yakuba's actions and then he's charged before the court, nothing comes out of it. In your opinion, would you think that this will not, the Gambian people will not lose trust and confidence in these commissions?
Not necessarily. I don't think so. What happens outside may have an impact, certainly, on the work of the commission, but it's not going to be a determining factor on how Gambians see the Commission of Inquiry. The work of this Truth Commission is a whole lot bigger than that. To sit here alone and get a victim to testify about their victimization before the entire nation, just that by itself is so significant. It's a whole lot bigger than a contempt case by Yankuba Toure. To have a Gambian sit out there anywhere and testify about having been raped by a senior member of government, it's much, much bigger than this. This is what the Commission does. It offers that platform where we can look at what has happened in our country in the past, be it in public or in secret. There is no price for that. And also, the TRRC offers us an opportunity to have a national dialogue amongst ourselves to examine how we lived in the past and how we want to live as a people in the future. That is a whole lot bigger than one case against Yankuba Toure. It would be a very good example, or it would be good for justice that there would be some consequences for his conduct. But whether there is or not does not impact much the work of this Truth Commission. I am talking about that woman who would come here and testify so openly about things, and from that gains the therapeutic effect, that healing. I am talking about one soldier from the Gambian National Army reconciling with a politician who he has assaulted. That has meaning and that has value. This case would not reduce the value or the significance of this Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I am saying this because of the importance and value that we attach to this. It's a whole lot bigger than one person or the case against one person. We are hoping that justice would happen. We're hoping that it would happen swiftly. But even if it doesn't, because you have to realize that the Attorney General has a lot of considerations when he institutes proceedings or withdraws proceedings. And some of those you may not even know, but they may be for a good cause or for a good objective. But that is a discretion of the Attorney General. We cannot sit here and second guess what the Attorney General would do or try to trump up the failure to proceed, to try to drum up the effect or impact of a failure to proceed with a case. I mean, I think it would be too exaggerated to suggest that a failure to prosecute that case would necessarily diminish the significance of the TRRC. It would not happen. But let me tell you, people would learn from this, that if you so blatantly disrespect an institution of the state, it would have consequences. Even if they do not attract any significant legal consequences, they would have some social consequences. And that you have seen today. I think that was the last question.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lead Counsel.
Let me allow my colleagues to say a few words in addition to whatever I have said, should they want to.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Have a good day. Well, have a good weekend, I should say, because for us, at least hearings have ceased.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
danga bëgg bagage bu baax qualité te mu ci ayib yow mi nga xamantene samp moy sa liggéey plumbing welding gardening ak carpenter bi dem leen ngeen seeti Total Shop bi moo yore bagage yu baax qualité mu ci ayib dëgër te du la sonal yow mi koy jëfandikoo ñu am fa generators hardware and luxury power tools accessory safety product lamps bench tools measuring tools hand tools light construction equipment garden tools welding machine air tools seet si leen ñu fii ci Jimpex wala ngeen dem ca Serekunda foofu ca biir Kama Garas wala ngeen yëkkati seen téléphone jokkoo ak ñun ci number yi 788 9138 wala 795 2973 756 1212 ñun waa Total ñoo leen di jox bagage yi gën ci seeni liggéey te du ngeen ci sonn benn yoon doomi réew mu baax moo ko fi def